You joined us for our last webinar. Our founder, Bjorn, did a quick run through of these 5 use cases as part of our overall lessons from the last 8 years. Now, today we're going to be diving a whole lot deeper, including hearing from 2 of the enterprises that we've worked with directly to give you a tangible flavor of the 5 different use cases. Now, full transparency, we haven't always had 5 use cases. When we started implementing impact-linked finance, we only had 2 use cases. But as we've learned, we've built out 3 more as we found new tweaks on our assumptions that just made sense. Now, I particularly love these 5 use cases because regardless of where you are on your own impact-linked finance journey, these are a great way to dive into the different options for creating impact additionality. So without further ado, let us dive right in. Use case number 1, unlocking impact potential. Now, this use case is all about companies that are already commercially strong who are able to raise commercial capital on their own. Now, this type of company may be intentional about impact, but there could be perceived risks or tensions between creating impact and growing the business. Now, here, impact-linked finance works to unlock impact potential by providing financial incentives or rewards to push the boundaries of the depth and breadth of impact that is possible. This often has the advantage of leveraging economies of scale for the part of the business that is most impactful, and or ensuring that impact creation doesn't come at the cost of profitability. So it's essentially addressing some of the possible trade-offs. Now, in practice, this is one of our most common use cases. Many businesses have high potential for impact, but struggle to fully dedicate resources to this without taking away from the rest of the business. So when we're able to provide financial rewards for impact, this unlocks huge impact potential. And I'm going to hand over to Steve to tell us a little bit more about this in practice.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, it's great to have Ayman here from Sprint, because we're going to talk about Sprint as our first use case. Sprint aims to bridge the tech talent gap in MENA, Middle East and North Africa. They start by assessing the tech talent, deliver customized learning journeys through content which they've developed themselves, and they guarantee a job in specific tracks, and then they support the alumni's career growth. So you can see why here. There's a really holistic solution taken through the steps, but also with a desire for really inclusive impact. They have a good, strong business model and a strong concept with a diversified customer set and partners. They've raised investment and continue to raise investment, which is also part of what makes them a really highly scalable solution. And their last investment round speaking to also a lot of the automation AI that's going on in the space. At the same time, when we've been discussing it, there were some challenges in attracting specific underserved customer segments. For example, they had been serving female techies, but to a much smaller proportion than the broader overall one. We also talked about different other customer segments, but we settled on focusing on really looking at incentivizing the growth in female techies and their growth. So the sync is really positioned to reward them to unlock that impact potential with those extra efforts to reach this specific customer segment. So in doing so, Sprints can focus on upskilling female techies in MENA and then place them into well-paid jobs. You'll also hear a bit more of a use case that's very focused on a specific impact like this, use case 3. Sprints is a brilliant case where you can apply use case 1, which we're talking about now, and use case 3, which will be described a bit later. But without further ado, I actually want to introduce Ayman to you, the CEO of Sprints. He's led the development of Sprints from the beginning into a world-class platform, and also has a history of as a bit of a serial entrepreneur, having started multiple businesses and exited a few. So Ayman, welcome. Before I jump into a question for you, is there anything that you want to add from Sprint's side, context-wise?
Yeah, perhaps maybe we can announce good news that now we are serving Africa as well, not North Africa. So we launched in Nigeria, our first cohorts targeting actually females that would like to work in the AI field. So this is one announcement. Secondly, maybe that now we are producing our content with the benefits and the advantages of AI. So this actually increased our efficiency and productivity and also the personalization for the learners. So this also would help the economies of scale. That's the main cost that we have is the cost of producing high quality content. Now we can really reduce this a lot. So this also a good announcement to share.
Definitely good news and congratulations. I'd like to ask you one specific question here to start off things. Why is unlocking Sprinters' impact potential through, we worked on 4 metrics, right? The IMM, unlocking IMM system, increasing female graduation, looking at technical proficiency increases and placement of females into jobs. Why was this important to you?
Actually, when I see the description of the use case that you mentioned, I didn't know that you have a specific persona for us. Actually, you are defining us exactly and the pain point that we have. Actually, we have this struggle between the business and the impact. So because we have fundraised multiple rounds, and for investors, they want an ROI, I mean, return on investment. So for them, the impact is something cherry on the top, but the core that they want scalability and growth and so on. And always to focus on impact, there is a kind of an investment to have a kind of an IMM system or have a proper MEL framework or a theory of change, and also a team that gather the impact and make an analysis so that we can improve. All of these are expenses that it's hard to justify for a board or an investment firms. So actually here where the ILF come, the impact linked finance, and actually the amazing support that we had of roots of impact. And actually, I'm not saying this because I'm on this call. I actually say this internally in sprints. Actually, we have worked in multiple similar programs related to impact linked finances. Actually, this is our third. And actually, the support that we had, the structured way, actually analyzing, we always say Steve knows more than us in terms of our business model and how to scale it and the economies of scales and the unit metrics that we have. So the structuring, I would say, was amazing. Just to give a feedback for all the audience here, what you did with us is analyzing the situation, our plan without the impact linked financing, what we are going to achieve, and what are the pain points that we have that you mentioned that our female graduates, what we have struggles there. Also, we didn't measure, I would say, the growth in terms of technical skills in some domains, and how we can finance this and so on. So with the impact linked finance, how we can leverage this, increase the skills, increase the employment, increase the graduation of the females and so on. So you focus on the pain point and you incentivize and you make a structure and support that we can achieve this, and then you also follow up and help whenever is necessary. So I would say this is actually was a learning experience for us. Actually, the theory of change that we developed together, now we put it in all the floors that we have at Sprints, and actually now investors are happy, I would say, because they like visual, they see thing, and all part of the onboarding for the team, the new team members, to understand how the philosophy of change. And really, I would say this is extremely important for the team, because most people are actually working for value and impact. So especially in the edtech sector, I would say, and the educational sector, most of our team are givers and people would like to help the communities. So again, I do believe it's from the business, the financial, the impact level, all the experience was amazing, and we can see this in our numbers now. It's increasing a lot in terms of the females graduates, as well as the employment rates as well.
Fantastic. I certainly had a lot of fun structuring this transaction with you. We got into the nitty-gritty of it, and what was beautiful for me is that we really co-designed this together. It wasn't just pushing one way. There was a lot of debate around what is the right fit for you. So maybe just a follow-up question there. How is the impact linked finance? Are there elements of the impact linked finance process that were particularly important for you that you saw that could unlock extra impact potential? Is there something that stood out that you hadn't expected before that came out afterwards?
Say two things here that in the part of the planning itself, sometimes you know that you have a pain point, and you want to act upon, but you don't have a structured methodology to do so. So we know that we have a problem, for example, in the number of females because we are in the STEM field, you know. So there is a challenge here. Also, we are serving the underserved sector, and they don't have the way to pay, to structure the payment ways or a financial model that can include the underserved, also females. It was a nightmare for us. And having this kind of methodology where we have the pay later scheme where learners can pay after being hired, the customized marketing messages for the females, also launching new programs that is more attractive for females and embedding some AI and some technology related aspects. All of this resulted at the end that the results is coming better and better. Also, the part which is related to the measurements and analyzing the data and closing the loop. So I would say in the planning itself and setting the methodology and the plan, and then the analytics part, here I would say the ILF helped a lot. And also the incentive is amazing again, because when you put an incentive here, you can invest in creating, because such things, programs, you do it once and then you attract. The marketing message is designed and you do it. So again, a lot of things are investments that you would iterate on, and also learnings itself. When you learn how you hack this is also something that is extremely beneficial for us on the long run.
Great, thanks so much, Ayman, and I look forward to more questions a bit later. But back to you, Natasha, for now.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate it. Such great insights, Ayman. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we're going to go back to sharing our screen now. So if you just give me a second to pull that back up. And there we go. All right. So if you do have any questions for Ayman, please do feel free to pop them in the chat now, and we'll come back to them during the discussion, or you can ask them live during the Q&A session. So coming to use case number 2, enabling sustainable impact. Now, use case number 1 referenced commercially strong companies with the potential to deepen their impact through incentives. Now, use case number 2 is almost the opposite of this. Companies who are already creating very deep impact, but are at a stage of their business where they need support to improve their commercial viability and crowd in finance. Now, this is super important because no matter how impactful a company is, they're only impactful as long as they're in business. If they fail, so does their impact. So we really want to ensure that impactful companies are supported through the early critical phase where they need to build and test and find their product market fit. So here in use case 2, impact-linked finance is used to supplement their revenues or to reduce their costs in a way that makes the business model more attractive to investors. And once they attract finance and get the economies of scale that they need to grow, they can also grow their impact.
Great, let's jump into an example of it, Akista. And Akista connects smallholder farmers to markets using climate smart technology. What's interesting about Akista is the areas that they operate in often lack the type of infrastructure, or they are based in areas with lower economic development, resulting in many of the farmers in those areas struggling to access water. So they end up fetching water from rivers, or they need to wait until rain season to actually farm. So you can imagine the revenue strains in that regard, or needing to supplement it in other ways. And this is where Akista comes in, because they support these smallholder farmers with renewable technologies and innovative farming techniques to actually help them go year round. They'd initially been focused on their B2B, business to business and business to government, B2G business lines, but really wanted to strengthen their B2C line, their business to customer line, but had this tension, right? It's a highly impactful business line, but in the short term, it was deemed a lot riskier and not as commercially attractive. So you can see the application of the use case here. So the sync was really positioned to help make this business line, the B2C line, more viable and overcome some of those commercial challenges. In order to do this, we built the transactions additionality to reward Akista for growing the number of farmers with access to their premium, or what I call their most impactful service. It's called irrigation as a service, and for further enhancing the smallholders, farmers' incomes that are utilizing these services.
Great, thanks, Steve. And with that, we'll move on to use case number 3, unleashing specific impact. So we've spoken about using impact-linked finance to unlock impact potential and using impact-linked finance to support commercial viability. Now we're going to talk about something totally different. Use case 3 is all about using impact-linked finance for a very specific targeted purpose. And this could be relevant for any kind of company where they're interested in deepening a specific impact theme or a specific impact topic. Now, gender and climate are 2 really great examples of specific impact themes that we work with, but this could span a range of different themes. The key element here is that this is a topic that until now hasn't been a key or a core focus area within the business model, but has the potential to shoot the lights out with the correct rewards and focus. So here, the role of impact-linked finance is to provide the company with the space that they need to be able to focus on deepening a very specific impact in a very meaningful way by providing rewards for outcomes related to that theme. And we're very lucky to have Sheyrar, the CEO of one of my favorite companies, Trucker, with us today. And we're going to talk a little bit about the work that we did here with Trucker and how they were deepening the very specific impact of gender. So welcome Sheyrar, and thank you so much for joining us. Now, Trucker is a logistics platform in Pakistan working in the tracking sector. And I'll never forget the first call we had, Sheyrar, because I was still wrapping my head around Trucker's super cool business model, thinking this sounds kind of like an Uber for tracking. And at that time, the Trucker management team was mostly men, and we were talking about tracking and the logistics space in Pakistan. And you mentioned how important it is that Trucker deepens its gender impact. And honestly, this kind of took me by surprise, because when I think about a trucking and logistics tech company, the first thing that pops into my mind isn't gender impact. But I really appreciated the passion and conviction that you and your co-founders spoke with about why this was important to you. So could you tell us a little bit about Trucker and why deepening Trucker's gender impact was a priority for you?
Thank you so much for that, and really appreciate being on this webinar. So Trucker is a logistics platform that we set out to create in 2019, which addresses the problems that truckers have in Pakistan, but not just in Pakistan. The problems that truckers face is pretty ubiquitous. I mean, I've seen now in so many countries, even developing countries, truckers have some of the similar problems. And the 2 key problems are basically financing, because truckers get paid for their services basically after the services are complete, sometimes 30, 60, 90 days after the fact. And then secondly, there's a transparency problem between customers and service providers and truckers, because what happens is that there's tracking of cargo, there's trying to figure out the different service levels that different truckers have, because it's such a fragmented industry. So due to that, you don't know if trucker A is better than trucker B. what is his history been, and stuff like that. So we set out to create a platform where we solve both these problems, and we're basically a fintech company. So we've got a lending license, and we give loans to truckers as well as other mobility logistics players. One of the things that caught our mind, Pakistan historically has been a very the industry in logistics has been very male dominated. I would say like 90% plus 99% in fact. But one of this example that I quote a lot is that there's one region in Pakistan, which is a desert region, where you have female truck drivers, and that's really odd because it's like 500 kilometers into the desert, and there's a bunch of female truck drivers there, and the sort of drive and determination of those female truck drivers led us to really feel that the industry is not really could use that that sort of drive and determination, because there's so many women who want to be part of the industry but are not able to for various reasons. So we made it one of our goals, both internal and external, to not only support women in the sector, but also make sure that we hire women into ranks within trucker. So that's how we sort of got talking to Roots of Impact, and then from there we've had a journey with them to finally launch the program in Pakistan.
Okay, and so just to give everybody a little bit of context on our engagement today. So we've worked with Trucker and with Value for Women to develop a gender action plan, and last month we signed the contract for a social impact incentive that focuses on rewarding increased representation of women employees across all levels of Trucker, as well as a gender inclusive workplace and growth in women customers, which is super cool. So Sheyrar, I know we're at the beginning of the social impact incentive, but can you tell me a little bit about how having the social impact incentive has and will facilitate the focus on gender at Trucker?
So our program, one of the key, other than internal, increasing women in the organization at all levels. I mean, some of the levels are easier in terms of sort of finance, accounting, these kind of functions where we've gotten women participation. But some of the more operations heavy roles, which traditionally have had challenges for women to be part of, we've made strides in that. We've got people hired in those divisions. But more importantly, we have officially launched our lending program for women-led logistics companies. And honestly, it's only been a few weeks, and there's been a tremendous interest. I mean, we've gotten applications from women who not only have already started a logistics company, but some who are also looking to be part of it in different capacities. So it just goes to show that because nobody was even sort of shining a light in that direction, just the fact that there is an avenue for them to apply, because getting a loan in Pakistan is generally difficult. It's not even for male owned businesses. They have a lot of trouble. So for women-led businesses, it was non-existent, at least in logistics. And obviously we're focused on logistics, but it's one of those things where you start a trend. I mean, if we're doing in logistics and it's successful, then you definitely see other people do in other sectors, and that's a sort of change we want to catalyze. And it's very very heartening to see that just in a couple of weeks, we've seen women businesses come to our our lending window, and those loans will sort of go out, and you'll probably see some of those companies do well and go on to sort of become examples in the space.
That's really fantastic to hear, Sheyrar. And I also loved when we were engaging the focus that you had on the potential for systems change, that this wasn't just a change within Trucker, but this had the potential to shift the whole ecosystem. starting with Tracker. So that was super inspiring. I'm really looking forward to seeing this come to life. And thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you.
If you do have questions for Sheyrar, you're more than welcome to pop them into the chat or bring them with you to the discussion at the end. We will leave plenty of time to have more discussion around this. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and we will move on to to use case 4, which is all around encouraging continued impact. So with use case 4, we're looking at enterprises who are both impact focused and economically viable. However, we know that even when an enterprise has both of these things in place, as a company scales, things can get a little bit more complicated. Now, previously, there may have been no trade-off between the impact and the business models, but now, with external investors coming in and a push to scale, it might be that instead of the impact focus that the company previously had, there are lower hanging, more profitable fruits than before. And here, impact-linked finance really works to keep the enterprise on track with its mission as it grows. So particularly useful in the case where companies are scaling and growing.
Let's jump into an example of this, and also just a quick shout out to colleagues from Aqua for All who were involved in this deal as well, because this deal was funded through the Impact Link Fund for WASH. I see Anne-Marie just come in on screen there. So this is Aquaclara Kenya, and this is a really interesting example of this. So Aquaclara Kenya, or ACK as I call it, works to improve access to safe drinking water by distributing really simple, affordable, and effective solutions like a water filter. They actually started as an NGO and quite recently shifted more towards a hybrid model with the rollout of a for-profit entity. They also then started producing a fancier filter that is a bit more expensive and could target higher income ones. And they also raised commercial investment for the first time. So you can see the application from what Natasha described a bit earlier. But having already moved from an NGO with a really strong mission towards serving lower income customers, now towards a hybrid can be quite tricky when you have these extra commercial pressures and new investors involved. But the team was still really determined to make sure that they continued serving the low income customer segment. And this is where we came in with Aquafall as well, and set up a social impact incentive that was designed to help ACK maintain that focus on the low income customer segments as they scaled and as they grew out, but also deepen their impact by enabling the placement of their new hubs into more impactful areas, and then also to still stay really focused on the water quality and maintenance of these solutions that they're providing, particularly to vulnerable customers. What was really special about this deal is that the metrics are designed so that the growth of the low-income customer segment does not create a business imposition to thereby sort of disincentivizing the growth of the higher margin customer segment. So we decoupled that, and that's been working quite effectively in this case to prevent any mission drift, but still reward them for staying on mission and serving lower income customers. We can move on to use case 5 now.
Excellent. And this is our very last use case before we dive into the Q&A and discussion. Kickstarting impactful solutions. Now, this is a special case where an enterprise wants to launch a new business line or expand to a new region. Now, companies usually here need upfront capital, and there's also a level of risk involved because this is something that's new and untested. Very often, it is the kind of thing that a commercial investor just won't fund because of the risk, but there is strong potential for impact. So here we provide impact-linked debt or an impact-linked loan so that there is an upfront cash injection and rewards in terms of the interest rate later on as the impact metrics are achieved. Now, the great thing about this use case is that it is highly additional, not only on the impact front, which all impact-linked finance transactions are by default, but also from a financial additionality perspective, because this isn't capital that would be traditionally available elsewhere.
So PureFresh is an example that we've actually concluded fairly recently, a really innovative one that we structured. They are a water distribution company that's actually serving close to 1 million households in Kenya with clean drinking water through a water dispensing model. Why PureFresh? In this sense, they were well established, they had operations for many years and consistent growth across those operations through quite a standard model. But then more recently, they started piloting a new cashless system that was more flexible because it was a containerized solution. It uses solar, so they could place it in different areas. And at the same time, PureFresh was also, when the founders started this business, it was really to address a local community issue, really narrow, and it grew from there, but they still have a desire to be even more impactful. So they were provided with a revenue-based impact-linked loan. I like to call it a REBEL, and that's where the repayment of the multiple is tied to the impact that they create. Meaning if they actually place new outlets, which they purchased with the upfront capital provided through the impact-linked loan, if they place those new containers in or outlets in more impactful areas, such as a lower income area, which we helped create a matrix for, they get better terms for better impact. So their multiple is reduced for more impactful placement. So in summary, PureFresh actually were piloting a cashless model already. They had evidence of the impact that they were creating, and they were ready to test this new pilot out more broadly before committing to a much more full-scale implementation. And they saw opportunities to place new outlets in areas that would be more impactful, that they could possibly cross-subsidize with their higher margin outlets. And provide safe drinking water to people in those areas that weren't getting that before.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Steve. So that brings us to the end of our 5 use cases. Sheyrar and Ayman have very kindly offered to stay on with us for the last few minutes for us to be able to have a discussion and to answer any questions that you might have. So we're going to open the floor now. If there's anything that you are interested in knowing from either us or the 2 companies that we have spoken about today around the impact-linked finance transactions and the use cases, please feel free to either put your question in the chat, or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and chat to us directly. I see we have a couple of questions coming in already. Okay, so from Miriam. Thank you very much, Miriam. What are the most common impact-linked finance instruments that you use? You mentioned sync and impact-linked loans. Are these the most common ones, and what other instruments do you use? Great question, and I'll throw this one to our impact-linked finance champion, Steve.
Thanks, Miriam. Yeah, I think you hit it spot on there. The sync is our flagship instrument. We've used that multiple times. I think we've got over 40 different syncs. We also have a few different impact-linked loans, different in structure, different in how they also reward the impact. You heard me speaking about a revenue-based one. We've got more traditional amortizing ones as well. There are other instruments like that we use for much earlier stage businesses, like a revenue impact revenue matching fund, where we really help the businesses build up their IMM systems in order to attract further impacting finance as well. But impacting finance can be actually applied to almost any instrument. And we are working on that in different ways with different instruments, and actually watch the space, because those will come out in the coming time, and we'll be sure to share case studies around it and how that can be applied.
Great, thanks, Miriam, for the question. All right, another question from Raphael. Thanks, Raphael. Thanks for popping your questions in the chat. Also, please feel free to raise your hand. We can make this a discussion as well. So how compelling is this additional revenue stream to commercial investors, and how much skepticism do they hold? Great question. This was a question we had as well. We're in the middle of doing some research on this, because we wanted to get a sense of how much does this really move the needle. The answer, I'm afraid, is a little bit, it depends, and it depends on the type of investor, what they're looking for. It depends on the sort of size of the additional revenue stream in comparison to the overall investment round. So it depends on a couple of different things. What I will say is that when we initially started doing impact-linked finance, we worked independently of impact investors altogether. We would work directly with the enterprise, provide a social impact incentive, and they would go out and raise capital using that as part of their investment round. What we do in some of our funds now is we partner directly with the impact investors up front. And I will say that when we started doing that, it was slow going at first. We got, we really had to convince the impact investors to partner with us on this. And now we're at the point where there's so many impact investors interested in partnering with us that we kind of like, whoa, slow down. So we're definitely seeing interest from impact investors in terms of, from their perspective, being able to have tangible rewards for the impact that they would like to see. So we're definitely hoping to see more of that as we go. And as we get further on in this research question that we have around how compelling this is to impact investors, we'll be sure to keep you updated on that. It's a really great question. All right, and then a bunch of questions from a guy. Thank you so much for all these questions. Are there any academic programs we should opt for? Any trainings you can recommend to become impact-driven consultants? Actually, now that you mention it, we are in the early next year. We are going to be launching our very first impact-linked finance training. This will be made up of 2 trainings. In fact, we will be launching a community hub of impact-linked finance that will allow impact-linked finance practitioners and aspiring impact-linked finance practitioners to come together. And on this platform, this community hub, we will be having a self-paced course that'll be a virtual course that you can do in your own time. That's sort of an introductory course to impact-linked finance. And then building on that, we will have an impact-linked finance in real life course. And perhaps one of Daniela or Danibo, if one of you wouldn't mind just popping the link in the chat about our community hub and these trainings that we've got coming up. Thank you, Steve. So there is the link in the chat about our impact-linked finance community. So we want to keep these trainings pretty small, at least to start with, so that we can make sure that there's peer learning as well. But we're really excited to be launching this early next year, so that we can share some of the lessons that we've learned from the past 8 years, and some of the tools that we've created with the rest of the market as well. And then a couple of follow-up questions to that. So who to chat to design impact-linked finance solutions for humanitarian innovators? Any of us, we are all always happy to chat around this. And actually, the community hub that Steve posted the link in the chat for will be a really great place to have these kind of discussions. So definitely recommend checking that out, and please do get in touch with us if that's something that you're interested in. And then last question, can we use impact-linked financing solutions as blended finance model to bring private sector investors to the impact sector? Steve, I'll pass this one on to you.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, the instruments are designed, especially the sync is designed with blended finance components in it, right? So what we will often look to do is set up a sync within the context of an investment raise, at least when an enterprise is busy with fundraising, because we really see the benefits of working with enterprises that are looking to scale out their operations, that also have that context where we can come alongside that and also provide an impact lens along with it, and incentivize an impact focus with it. So it's definitely set up in a blended finance context. We did it with Sprints. Ayman they've been raising, I think they've concluded a few raises now. So our one came alongside that, as well as with multiple of the others that I spoke to. ACK was another one that had just recently raised as we were setting up the sync. So we take that context in, we make sure that the strategies are aligned, and make sure that the sync is also set up to reward them along the lines that this business is also looking to grow and scale. That's the best way to do it. It has the most synergies, and where you'll see your most impact as well.
Great, thanks so much, Steve. And then Ricketts, I see your hand up. I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping track of which came first, the chat or the hand. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump into the chat, and then we'll come right to you, Ricketts. A question from Jessica in the chat: how do you identify companies, investees? Is it challenging? Can one provide you with interesting contacts to build a pipeline? Great question, Jessica. And this depends on the fund that we are running. So what we do is we don't kind of openly do impact-linked finance transactions. We tend to run them through funds. And so we have a number of funds at the moment. We have our impact-linked fund for gender inclusive fintech. We have impact-linked fund for education. We have impact-linked fund for WASH. So you can check out our website for the various impact-linked funds that we have. Some of these we have open calls for applications where we ask people to apply to be part of the funds, and with others we partner with impact investors, utilizing their pipelines to be able to bring additional value to the impact investing market. So it does depend a little bit on the funds, but please do feel free to share interesting contacts with us that are in line with these funds. We're always keen to identify high impact potential companies that we can work with to do their impact. So thanks for the question, Jessica. And then Ricketts, coming to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for these 5 use cases. I'd just be interested to hear, historically, what has been the most kind of frequent use case that you've come across? And also looking forward, what's been almost an emerging trend of a use case that's come up more frequently?
Lovely question, Ricketts. And Steve, would you mind jumping in on this one?
Sure. The first one that we spoke to is definitely the one that we saw the most commonly, very similar to Sprints, where there definitely is a really strong commercial business, and there might be some impact happening already, but there's an attention, right, between the impact and the commercial viability of the businesses. And we've done a few impacting finance transactions with that sort of perspective. One that's really at the forefront and is use case 3 right now, unlocking a specific impact. And you can hear there were gender components to both the transactions that we spoke to now. There's a lot of interest in that, and your more thematic type of area across things like climate and gender at the moment. And so that's where we see financing flowing. And so, there's a lot of interest from businesses as well in that space. So we can really see a growth in that, in that use case as well.
Lovely. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Rikus.
Thanks for the question, Rikus. And then any questions for the two enterprises who spoke today? If you'd like first-hand experience of impact-linked finance from the companies that we work with, it's a great opportunity to pick the brains of Ayman and Sheyrar, or any other questions.
Maybe Natasha, I can comment on one of the questions related to how the investors perceive the impact-linked finance.
Please do, that would be great.
Yeah, at the beginning, they didn't understand what is this. You have to explain this to them because, I mean, they don't comprehend. I mean, why you are in the impact business, we need a return investment. But again, when you explain this in the right terms, for example, I position this as equity-free financing, so or investment, equity-free investment. So imagine this is an investor, but they don't want an equity in this investment. So this helps in closing rounds. This helps as recognizing this as part of your revenue, so it's part of your growth. This helps in financing some aspect in your expenses and investments related assets and sheet. So again, if you position it well, they will appreciate this. And it, as you mentioned, it can help in closing rounds as well as financing some of your investments inside the company. And they will be happy to do this. And the more the financing is, of course, the more they would appreciate, because they would see that this would make the company more valuable. And they can understand that there are a lot of people interested in the impact part. And again, with your help, it becoming better and better to communicate this to the investors.
Fantastic, Ayman. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's so useful to get the perspective from your side. I think our perspective is sometimes different. You know, we don't get to see from that lens. So thank you so much for sharing. That is really, really, really exciting to hear. Ahmed, I know that you had, I don't want to put you on the spot at all, no pressure whatsoever, but I know that you had your hand up a little bit earlier. I just want to check that I didn't miss you there.
No, I mean, yeah, I had my hand up. No, actually, I had a comment for Ayman, and I had a question for Hamza. My comment for Ayman, obviously, I'm also Egyptian, so it's really lovely seeing people doing impact work in Egypt. The social entrepreneurship field is very underdeveloped in Egypt, but there is so much opportunity for growth there. And it's also amazing to see him raising impact-linked finance and to see fellow enthusiasts for the field back home. And hopefully we'll talk soon. On the other hand, my question is for Hamza, since he is working in Pakistan in the logistics field. There is actually a very big Egyptian startup called Trilla that works also in the trucks field. And I think they expanded to Pakistan lately, but they are not a social enterprise. And I think all of their funds are traditional investments. So I wanted to ask Hamza about the competing with such startups that are expanding in Pakistan, coming from the rest of the Middle East, having a bigger market in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, and other countries. How does he actually deal with this as a social entrepreneur with maybe less investment opportunities or like underdeveloped fields of raising funds and so on?
Ahmed, that question was to Sheyrar, right?
To Sheyrar. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hello? Sorry, there's a bit of a internet issue, I think.
No
Yeah.
worries, Sheyrar. Did you hear that question, or would you like
No, it was a bit choppy. Could you repeat that, please?
All right, yeah. I was saying that knowing that you work, like Trucker works in the logistics field and truck, basically, I'm Egyptian, and there's a big startup in Egypt called Trella that has of course, they're a competitor of yours, and they, as you know, they expanded to Pakistan, but they are not a social enterprise. They don't they basically raise traditional investments. So I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with such competitions, being a social entrepreneur that has maybe less resources in comparison to them, having an impact also targets. How do you deal with this kind of competition in this sense?
So, good question. I don't view, the impact in social work as competitive work, because I think that every organization should have the social and impact angle, and that sort of, not only is it mandated by some of the investors that we have. I mean, not just us, but Trella is also a VC funded enterprise. And they've got international investors. So I think that angle is there. How much focus a company wants to have really depends on where the company is, at the stage of growth and at the stage of sort of resources and bandwidth. Because a lot of time and effort does go into designing these programs and having a social impact focus. And I think that there are various ways for logistics companies to do it. Whether it be we're doing, one of our big ones is gender, but another big one is climate and carbon footprint reduction, which I think all logistics companies are focusing on in one way or another. So that's happening. And Trella is slightly, we are in the same space, but we're fintech and they're a marketplace, so we don't really compete. In fact, we've often talked about potentially collaborating. So and these are great initiatives where you can collaborate with other companies, because it's really not about competing. It's about having the maximum impact, and a lot of times having a collaboration gives you a better shot at making the maximum impact.
Love that approach, Sheyrar. All right, I know we only have 2 minutes, but there's a really, really great question in the chat from Raphael that I'd love to pose to Ayman and Sheyrar just as we wrap up. So to the two of you, how much does impact linked finance influence your overall strategic plan? Is it generally optimized in isolation, or is part of the overall strategic plan? And maybe, Ayman, if we could start with your perspective on that.
Actually, we are currently making the review of the strategy and the annual plan that we have. So yeah, it's part of the overall strategy. You cannot do it in isolation because again, it's the impact is embedded in your business model, or at least in our case. I mean, it's something not collateral. It's part because we pick, we train, we upskill, and then we employ, and then we help our alumni to grow. So there are a lot of impact aspects there. So again, it has to be part from the strategic point of view and also from the financial, because there are some expenses, and also the ILF, there's a financial aspect. So of course, it has to be there.
Thanks so much, Ayman.
One follow-up note, also impact is about the long-term part, and also the vision and mission is part is surrounded by the impact. The core of it's the impact. So again, it's part of the strategy. It has to be part of the strategy.
Thanks, Ayman. Sheyrar, how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I think that it's very much has to be part of the ground strategy, because viewing it as anything but it becomes a side project, and I think that sustainable change, if you look at sort of the vision, to align with the vision, there's no other way than for it to be part of the core strategy. And what we're doing, specifically in terms of gender, I mean, really, the philosophical belief is that there should be a level playing field and equal participation from both women and men in the industry. So for us, that's just the starting point in how we approach the problem. So it's just now part of our framework.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ayman. Thank you so much, Sheyrar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Aga, I'm so sorry we didn't get to your question, because I would have loved to brainstorm around that, but we will park that for next time, because that's a really cool question as well. Thank you for joining us today. I know we've taken up a little bit more of your time than we promised. I hope that this was a valuable session for you. We will be back in the new year with more Impacting Finance Essentials. So please keep an eye out on LinkedIn. It has been wonderful to share this afternoon with you, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much.